Hey guys, and welcome back to Antimatter Chemistry Progression Log 13. We're getting pretty close to the end, and I still have been planning quite a lot this week, so I do have some stuff to show you. So we'll go ahead and we'll get started over here, which is the beginnings of the compressor area. We actually even have some singularities. The first eight or so, the first eight have been set up so far. We have lots of them. I did make a minor mistake with a couple of them. I forgot to limit the drawers, and they ran all night. So they actually chewed up all of our lithium, but beryllium and hydrogen we have lots of. So we have way more of a few of these singularities than we'll ever actually need, and having a stack is actually more than we need. Especially since the machines will buffer a stack inside of them too, but this way they can just run passively and I don't have to think about it. So we're pretty good on a lot of these singularities, but this is just the beginning. We do have lots more. Um, as you can see, we have the first eight of 81. I'm doing the elements in order, so I have to set up fluorine, neon. We have sodium already. We have magnesium, aluminum's good, silicon's good, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, argon. Argon we should be fine. Cobalt, iron, manganese, chromium, vanadium, titanium, scandium, calcium, potassium. We're good with all of those. Krypton we're good. Bromine, selenium, arsenic, germanium, gallium. I'll show that in a minute, but we'll be pretty good on that soon. Copper, I'll have to set up some stuff for. Nickel will be fine on. So most of these things we're actually pretty close to being done, or we have. There's still a few more things that I have to put together, like the neon, the vanadium, the yttrium has to be done. A few of these heavier elements have to be done. There's a couple of them that I still have to set up dissolvers for, but other than that, that's pretty much it. Uh, Obviously, this is still a work in progress. I tried to use XNet to get items into the neutronium compressor. I was able to do it last time, but it wasn't able to insert into the neutronium compressors. I think they're sighted, and honestly, I just didn't really feel like dealing with it, so I just threw export buses on them, especially since it would have been an absolutely disgusting long and complex channel, and I just really wasn't interested in doing that after a little bit. So I don't really use too many export buses in this space. So, and I try to stay away from using them specifically because they're a little bit more TPS intensive compared to the usual interface to XNet to machine to drawer setup that I normally do in this case. But we're fine on TPS. Like, we're good. This is the even lower TPS than my last run. It's been pretty efficient, and I'm not really all that concerned about using export buses in this case, especially since it'll only be like 80 of them or so. And when I say more TPS intensive, I just mean it's not like horrible, and if you have 100 of them, the whole server slows to a crawl or whatever. It's just if you have hundreds and hundreds of them, then it might become a problem over a long period of time. Like if I had an export bus on every single machine in this space, that might be a problem, but probably not. I don't really know. I have never built that many export buses before. Anyway, so we're getting pretty good. I do have plenty of neutronium ingots. I'd set up neutronium collectors a while ago. These are the denser ones, so they produce an ingot at a time instead of a pile. In this version of the game, we have, when I set it up, my last run, there was only the regular neutronium collectors, and they produce piles, which you use to make nuggets, which you use to make ingots. However, there's denser versions, which are just compressed versions of the old neutron collectors, and they take the same amount of time as the base neutron collector, but they produce the higher tier. So a dense one would produce a nugget, a denser would produce an ingot, and the densest would produce like a block, which we don't need blocks. So we could afford a couple of the densest ones, but definitely not nine. And I didn't really feel like compressing these into one that would produce a block rather than just uh, because I have this drawer over here for ingots. And obviously we don't need 12,000 ingots. We're good on neutronium ingots at this point. So that's not a problem. Over here, actually, I don't know. I know yesterday I noticed that one of the reactors turned off, specifically the thorium reactor turned off. We finally chewed through all of those thorium ingots. We had several hundred thousand of them at one point. But a lot of the miners, I have just not put down the quarries again. There are a maximum number the server will run at a time, and it's like 4 to 5. After that, they'll all start shutting down because they can't load chunks anymore. There's a limit to the number of chunks the quarries are allowed to load in total. And I assume it's something similar to down here with how many loaded chunks I can have, about 6,000, and each one loads a little over 1,000. So I assume it's in like the 4 to 5 range of how many chunks how many miners we can use, or the builders we can use. And I haven't put them all down again. Like we don't have enough lapis, nether, or we haven't probably just short on redstone. The reason why I've stopped putting them down is because I've decided I'm just going to use the mining dimensions. I was trying to stay away from using RF Tools dimensions for that because partially because I wanted to see if I could do it without those dimensions, as well as I just wanted to be really performant for the server. But we have tons and tons and tons of performance overhead right now. So, and adding 3 more dimensions through RF Tools is not going to destroy the server. It only really becomes a problem if you have hundreds of them, like you would on, say, like a public server or something. At that point, it could become a problem. So it's not really worth me waiting weeks and weeks and weeks and just spending like AFKing pretty much, or just spending those weeks just moving quarries around so I can get ridiculous amounts of resources, when we can just do it this way instead. I do have some terrain absorbers here. These will produce normal terrain because we don't have solid uh, you don't have like solid terrains, right? You can uh there are these types of terrain solid, which means you can provide the materials so you can make the world that it's basically a super flat of that material. Uh However, hopefully normal will work and I can just feed them the material and we'll just have like generic terrain with the material and then we can just throw a quarry down and we'll be fine on that. And once that's done, that'll be one of the last major singularities we'll have trouble with. I will have to set up a compressor for the mineral salts, but we have plenty of mineral salts stored up, so that won't be a problem either. And then we'll have to set up a few more dissolvers over in the dissolver pillar area. I think we'll have enough room over there. I guess we can go talk about that over here now. Uh, we should have enough room over here. I might need to add a couple more. I did add a couple more spots actually at one point, 3 or 4 or so. I also had to remove this. This was a connected pathway originally, but then I realized that there was no way to get to these dissolver pyramid or pillars without having to like run a cable up underneath one of these like supports. So I had to like run down underneath and then back up, and I was like, no way. So I just cut this off a little bit so we can bring the cable around this way because the cables are running through these. Where do we have the cables? Right here. See? Cable facades. Can't see them because I've put lots of cable facades. Uh, so we do have. Actually, we can go ahead and talk about the other trace elements. So gallium, zirconium, dysprosium, nickel, and tungsten all come from regular cobblestone. I have mentioned this before. So when dissolving cobblestone, you get a bunch of different resources. By dissolving regular cobblestone, it's mostly you get nothing, 96% chance to get nothing. But you also have a very small chance to get a bunch of other elements, as well as some very trace elements that really aren't all that useful, except for singularities. So the very early on, it's not really worth dissolving these things unless you like. I assumed that I would have just set up fusion fission plants, like I was with the alchemistry ones, for most of these trace elements. Like zirconium and nickel, I just would have dissolved those things we get from nuclear craft for. Tungsten was up in the air about what I would have done, and this way I did it with iron ore from quarries. We don't have any more iron ore, so that source kind of went away, but we still had tons and tons of that stuff stockpiled, so it really wasn't that much of a concern. But I didn't really want to set up the fusion fission plants for dysprosium and gallium, as we were kind of running out of slots, like pairs for all of them. I could have just done it singles, and that would have been fine. But I just decided that I could set up cobblestone for a bunch of these different elements, and that would have worked fine because these trace elements fall away as soon as you start compressing the cobblestone. Like you can dissolve, like I believe it's up to is it quadruple? Yes, you can dissolve up to quadruple. And the higher you compress the cobblestone, the better chance you have for stuff. You can see quadruple is 91% chance nothing versus 96% chance nothing. However, it does remove all of the trace elements. So you only get aluminum, iron, gold, and silicon dioxide. But that's all you really need at the very early game, and so it's really nice, especially with how slow we were making cobblestone at first. I didn't really think it was worth dissolving regular cobblestone, and it wasn't. But now it is. And this has just been dissolving cobblestone pretty much consistently for the last couple of days. And we're about a quarter of the way to 20% of the way to what we need for all of the trace elements. Tungsten's done, but the rest of them are still waiting. Obviously, things like nickel and zirconium, I can just set up dissolver pillars from those ingots or dusts. Like we just get zirconium dust from nuclear craft as well, and we also just have nickel ingots. So we could dissolve those things. I could also dissolve green dye for this, but we have the ingots, so I just dissolve the ingots. But I kind of want to save slots for dissolver pillars because we are kind of low on them, and there still are several more things I have to dissolve. Things like americium, plutonium. We're gonna have to set up yellow dye for iodine, silver ingots, copper ingots because I chewed through all the copper somehow from salts. Helium, we're gonna have to set up liquefiers for. Fluorine, we'll have to set up liquefiers for. I that might actually be it. So we could actually maybe have room, but that's 7, right? That we have to set up for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we do have actually some extra. So if it does become a little bit too slow, I can always set up those ingots and dusts for singular pyramids or pillars. But I think by the time diprosium and gallium have enough, we'll have enough of the other two as well. But they all have similar drop chances, so I'm not really all that concerned. Zirconium is slightly higher, which is why we have more of that. But so once diprosium, gallium, and nickel are done, zirconium will be done, and this is how we're getting diprosium and gallium. So I don't really see a point in setting up those pillars for those ingots because it'll be by the time the others are done, it'll be done. So whatever. I also just we're dissolving redstone for strontium. We're dissolving light blue dye for both cobalt and antimony. You can technically get, let's see, you can get cobalt from cobalt ingots, and we have lots and lots of that stuff. However, the best way to get antimony, other than using a fission block, we fished in from Mendelevium, is the only way to get it is to dissolve light blue dye. And light blue dye also gives us cobalt. So I didn't really see a point in also either using if we were going to dissolve for cobalt, which we would have, we could have dissolved from cobalt ingots, or we could have dissolved, sorry, for light blue dye for also cobalt and antimony. I do believe the last run I ended up uh, splitting, using fission plants for antimony, or maybe it was fusion. I don't remember. Um, no, I probably I think I did fusion for with iron and manganese actually. Um, but there I didn't really see a point in doing both a fission plant for one thing and a dissolver pillar when I could just do a dissolver pillar for both of them. So we also have arsenic now. We also set up a lead over here and we have actually I already said palladium last time, and we have plenty of niobium. I had accidentally one day got on and it turned we had like 1.1 million niobium because I accidentally forgot to properly level emit it. So we had lots of that stuff. Same thing happened to argon. I forgot to properly level emit it. As for bromine, it's because we also split krypton for stuff for argon, so it consumed 250,000 krypton, and it had to make another 250k, which is why we have double of the bromine that we would normally have. But we're pretty good on most elements at this point. Like I said, we just have the last couple that we'll have to do. Probably a couple more days of setting up fusion fission plants, and then we'll be compressing and stuff. And that'll be more or less it. We'll be done. It won't be that long to craft all the various infinity gear and infinity armor and stuff. So that won't be a problem either. That'll be like 30 to 40 minutes at most. Probably closer to like 10 to 15 if I'm being honest. So we don't really have all that much work left to do, really. We're still very good on power. We're still power positive even without the thorium reactor. We still have 120,000 because this base, when it's not really doing anything, without running the builders for quarries, this base consumes almost no power at all. Less than 7,000 RF per tick on the usual, which is insane for a late game base like this. That's just the applied energistics system as well as uh, the farms and the passive dissolvers for like over here. Most of the machines just don't run. A lot of the most power hungry machines that we have are the is ore processing as well as the builders. The space has just never really consumed all that much power to begin with, especially once all the fission fusion plants stock up, which they often finish when they're all running. When I start pulling a bunch of singularities out for all the antimatter chemist or for the antimatter catalysts, and everything will turn back on. We'll see a pretty big power surge for that once all the fission and fusion plants turn on, but at that point it won't matter because if we come back over here and we take a look at how much power we have stored, it's a lot. We have 6.84 trillion RF per tick. I don't know how long it would take to drain that. I assume a long time, like days, if not like a week, because this was running for weeks. Like all the reactors have been running at full bore for like a week and a half at this point, 2 weeks or so. So we'll be pretty good on that. I'm not really too concerned about power. However, I decided to come over. We're gonna come over here now to build another reactor anyway. This is an HEU 235 reactor. It'll produce about 265,000 RF per tick once I build it. I'm just setting it up so we can burn some uranium, and just because it feels weird not to have a big hefty reactor running. And I just really wanted to set up an HEU 235 reactor. There were a bunch of other reactors I wanted to build as well. I wanted to build like a HEP reactor, as well as a very hungry LU 233 reactor for Americium, but none of those things are needed either. And after I build this reactor, I'm done. I'm done building reactors. This has been the work of a couple of hours already, and it's not done. It's a 14 by 14 by 14 core, so it's a little bit smaller than the thorium core. But when I was generating the design from LEU235.com, which is just a site that generates nuclear craft designs for Underhull for this version of the mod, uh, I gave it a 16 by 16 and it didn't really use it very efficiently. Most of it was empty space, and then when I actually ran it for a slightly smaller core, it was actually produced a little bit more power. So I didn't need to give it the larger core. So this is a little bit smaller. It's actually it's way more expensive because it uses a lot more expensive coolers. The other one used mostly glowstone coolers. This one uses probably, I could pull up the design. I believe it's more diamond coolers than anything, but also emerald coolers are a very prominent part of this. And we don't really have too many emeralds. Like we don't really get those from quarries at all. They don't spawn in the deep dark for some reason. Uh, so we don't have a whole lot of emeralds, and they're not easy to get a hold of. Uh, like if we can, once I set up the fission reactor for vanadium, it won't be a problem. We'll be able to actually make them from chemical combiners, but unless you have a source of vanadium, you can't make emeralds. And the only way to get vanadium without the fission plants uh, is the emeralds themselves or farming like loot from the Atom dimension, which is not practical. It's not something you can. I guess you can also do it through purple antimatter, which is another source. Let's see. This is something you could do. I guess you could. I mean, I did set up some automated antimatter dissolving last run, so this is something you could do pretty early on. So I guess you could make emeralds that way, but we don't really use them for a whole lot, so I haven't really done that. We do have tons and tons of antimatter, as we do get it from the mob farm, from crates and stuff. But I just never really got around to setting up antimatter dissolving this time. The reason I did it in the last run was actually for strontium. You can't get it from red concrete, and that was so I could put redstone on passive before I had the builder quarries, but I just never really got around to it, and it never really was all that necessary for this run. So I will finish up this reactor at some point. Uh, I just don't know when. But I do want to build it, especially since I didn't build the MSR. I want to build another reactor. I think all the reactors are really, really cool. I don't design any of them because they're a pain in the ass to design a good reactor. The only way to design like reactors that are this good is straight up just to generate them. Otherwise, I think the puzzle is simply too complex and too varied for a human mind to solve, unless you're like mega smart or something. Um, so I'm going to fill in a lot of these reactor pits that I had prepared, as well as start closing off this area. Uh, So that way it'll look pretty good. I still have lots of decorative work to do, so that's going to be one of the biggest things going forward. I won't end the playthrough until I have completed all of the decorative work, as that was one of the big goals of the base, was to build something that was really nice looking. So I'm not going to leave the base in a half completed state, even if I complete antimatter, or not antimatter, sorry, the infinity gear before the decorative work, which I will probably won't do. I'll probably make sure I complete the decorative work before I craft that stuff, but we'll see how it happens. I've set up a bunch of these fission plants as well. Um, Obviously, I haven't covered up the decorative work that I've done down here. We can actually come over here to this control area, and we can see the things. I haven't set up most of these, uh, I guess, storage monitors yet. I was mostly just getting them functional so they could run overnight. There's, like I said, there's a lot of the small things that I have to do, obviously. Things that I've been kind of putting off for functionality because I do want these things to run. But we also have things like tellurium now, samarium, uh, praseodymium, praseodymium, augensin on passive now. All those things are being fused up too. Uh, so we're using a couple of the fusion plants now. I believe we're using almost all of them over here, except for no, we're using all of them over here, I believe. Oh, this one is still on for some reason. What are you doing? I'm curious. You're Odginson. Okay. We can go ahead and quickly fix this. Otherwise, I will forget to do this. uh, where are you? There you are. Hello? Okay. Well, I'll fix this later, I guess. I'll just leave it off. Well, it's on, so it'll be easy to see. Um, but yeah, so we're getting pretty close to the end. Obviously, if we come over here, there's been literally zero deco work done. I haven't done any deco work at all, which is something I need to take care of sooner rather than later. But I have completed a bunch of these storage monitors and stuff over here. We have argon, niobium, bromine and krypton, rhodium and ruthenium. I believe we have a few more over here that I've used. I don't, maybe not. Uh, so we still have a few more, but obviously I have a few more elements to set up on fission over here. More decorative work to be done over here. I'm really sad that all of this stuff over here turned into almost nothing, worthless nothing. This is the area where we make the coolant as well as the fuel for the MSRs that we are now no longer building. But I don't think I'm gonna rip this up. I'll just build the shack out and then leave it alone. I also never ended up making more of the DMLs for blazes and stuff, as once I had, like, what we already have, while it consumed more blaze rods than we were making, it made more blazing pyrotheum than we were consuming. So in the end, it was fine. And I just ordered a bunch of blaze rods. I have a crafting order for them. What's really strange is it'll craft them, but it won't read that it's crafting them. Oh, now it is. No, actually, it's not. You can see it's not completing their crafts. Where we are getting them, we can take a look at the blaze rods. They are going into the system. It's just that AE isn't recognizing that they're being crafted, and I legitimately have no idea why. This is a unique problem for blaze rods. Uh, because it does. Sometimes I feel like you set the recipe wrong, where it'll like produce like less or more than it thinks it is. It won't complete, but it's producing the proper amount. It's just like not automatically completing it. Um, so we'll see like it'll finish and stuff, and then it just will stay there forever. So I have to manually cancel these things, but I've only run like a couple crafts of this stuff. This was literally just because I needed to build some stuff for with blaze rods while it was still stockpiling all the blazing pyrotheum. See, look, it's not finished, so I'll just have to cancel it. But again, not a problem. We have plenty of blazing pyrotheum over there, as well as over here, and we're not running quarries. Though I am going to move some more. I do want to get the thorium reactor running just because it makes me a little bit uncomfortable to not have the thorium reactor running, even though we're still like crazy power positive and the base is pretty efficient on power. So there's not really a reason to be concerned. I just am. Oh yeah, we do have the auto extreme crafting tables and stuff. I set those up as well. I was not making all of those neutronium collectors and the neutronium compressors by hand. I did that in the last run, and that was annoying as hell. And so we have the autos in this version, so I'm not doing it. And there's actually one thing I forgot to mention last week. Was I set up redstone furnaces and manufactories for on-demand stuff? Because I think what did I do in them? I forget. Uh, Oh yes, I was making graphite bricks and sponges. It was mostly for graphite because I was when I was building the very expensive reactors, there was tons and tons of graphite stuff. And even though I upgraded the passive systems, I just didn't want to wait. So I was like, you know what? I can't believe I went through hundreds of hours of gameplay without on-demand furnaces. It was crazy how much passive process or how many passive processes I have in the space to the point where my on demand was I had pretty much no on demand for the longest time. Look, Greg Tech breaks your brain. Oh, it's only like 2 steps of microcrafting. Oh, that's no problem. And that's what it was like for 300 hours. We're up to like quite a while now. 340 hours, which is way, way more than the last run. The last run was like in the 290, 288 range, I believe, worth of playtime. But I've just been like every now and then I'll just get on and I'll just wander around my base for like 30 minutes because I love it so much. It's just so nice to be here. It's gonna be kind of a shame leaving such a nice base behind, but also I'll be happy to move on to a new challenge and to a new pack and stuff and play some new stuff. We'll still be back to AMC at one point or another. This is my favorite pack of all time, and I will play this constantly. I'll probably play it again next year at some point. I'll also play it again whenever the long-term support version is done, which is more or less an Antimatter Chemistry 1.5. The Pretty much everything is being reworked. There's a new mod that's being worked into the as a main progression line for the mod and stuff, and lots of other things. Just many, many other big changes. So we'll come back and we'll play that for sure because that'll just basically be a new antimatter chemistry pack, and I love this pack. I've mentioned this before, as for what's next after this, we'll be playing Ocean Block 2, but I don't know when that will happen, as like I've mentioned before, I've been writing the book and stuff, and that's like launching fairly soon at the end of the month or beginning of the next. So I don't really know how much time we'll have to play for Ocean Block 2, but it is something I want to play. And I will do there'll be some more base designs and stuff, which will be cool. I am gonna miss this very organic looking base. The next base will probably be a lot more industrial style. That may change. That design may change depending on how much I like mock-ups and creative tests. But I don't know. That's a few weeks into the future. It won't be, despite how close we are to finishing the pack, we won't finish the pack next week. My house is being tented for termites, and I won't be able to play for pretty much most of next week. We actually are getting kicked out like Sunday for getting into the hotel Sunday, and I play on a PC, so I don't have a gaming laptop, so I can't play. Um, my laptop might be able to run Minecraft, and this is a server, so it's entirely possible. Maybe if I get bored enough, I'll try and set it up and play in the hotel room. But I have other stuff I can do and probably should do. So I doubt we'll finish next week, but once we come back the week after, we absolutely will be done. I will finish that week after. There just really isn't all that much left to do. And I will make sure to grind it out at the very least. So, um, yeah, I think that's probably about it I've got for this week. It's been fairly productive for Minecraft as well as for writing, fortunately. I'm still unemployed. I get like a denial letter a day, which is, or if I'm lucky, I do. It's rough. It's rough out here in these streets. So I've been happy to doing some stuff, keeping myself busy. That's been nice. I never thought you could play too many video games. Uh, I was always a firm believer in that it was really, really hard. I was like, oh, I'll never be able to play enough. And it turns out almost 8 months of doing nothing but playing video games is too many video games. And sometimes I get really bored, and I'm really glad to have something else to do that's more productive than just playing Minecraft for 12 hours a day. Or Battlefield at this point. Battlefield 6 beta is so good. It's so good. We are so back. We have good shooters in 2025. Well, good PvP shooters, I should say. In 2025. It's crazy. Um, yeah, but so that's all I've got for this week. We're getting pretty close to the end. I'm very, very excited. This base is really coming together, and we're it's really, really fantastic. It's my favorite base of all time. Uh, so I hope you guys have had a good week. My week has been very good. I hope you guys have a good upcoming week, and I will see you all again. Well, not next week, but the week after. All right, guys. See you then.